Okay, so, optimal Cammy. The point of this is not like an all-around guide of the character. This is more so, it's not like an overall tech video, although I will have some hooligan stuff because it is slightly relevant to Oki setups. But, generally speaking, I'm just covering combo optimization, but I'm talking about damage, corner carry, super gain, and drive gauge, spent drive gauge penalty when you spend certain actions. For instance, let me demonstrate. If you do something like that, your drive gauge starts regenerating immediately after the combo ends. Whereas if you do, so it's a 3-bar combo off of low forward drive rush. Now if you do a 4-bar combo, your drive gauge does not start regenerating immediately. There's a brief delay. Because you did a raw drive rush, which has a longer drive gauge penalty than just doing a drive rush cancel like that, and it was more recent. It was so the longer you can have a combo go after the last time that you spend meter, the less likely that you are to have a lingering drive gauge penalty at the end of the combo, which will affect your general drive gauge regen and how much you regen from actions that you take afterwards, strikes or on block or whatever. So, in my notes, I would record something like that as a 4.5. Now this is roughly, I measured some of the timetables. Some of these things, I would say like maybe 10% of these things are not recorded to exact precision, but in terms of the drive gauge, but that was weird. Alright, so anyways, back to it. Right, so the way I recorded these things, and I will show the entire document on here. Okay, so I have like a couple documents. Some of these are just me recording things. This is like the loosest recording that I did, but this is for every single combo that you can possibly get. So I deleted a lot of things for this is the main document, or I put in the things actually worth going for. So the way I read this is whatever. Stuff like that. Standing light punch. Standing light kick. Medium spiral arrow. Medium cannon spike, etc. Level 1. Oh shit. And for each combo, it goes to the previous, and then for this one it would be everything that was on the previous tab over. Right, so this would be stand light punch, stand light punch, stand light kick, medium spike for this. For this, 2 lights into a level 3, no special cancel is the best way to go into this, off of lights. If you don't know, doing a special and then canceling the special into a level 3 applies a heavy scaling, much heavier than doing a normal into level 3. So anyways, to read any of these other ones, drive rush, stand light punch, that's what that is. Jump cancel, jump medium punch, H cannon strike, back medium punch target combo, MW is micro walk. Occasionally on this document I may have accidentally written this as FW forward walk on a couple instances, but they're the same thing. Flip is hooligan. So that's how I wrote these ones. Now on this side of the document, I have the damage that the combo does. This is the corner carry measured in squares. So on the grid stage, this line that Cammy's back foot is on is to this point, right, that Cammy's back foot is on, is 1 whole square. Now, the grid stage is 8 squares long, so this is measured in squares. Okay? 1.1, this is my measurement of super gain. In these regular parentheses, this is super gain that I recorded. So yeah, I don't have a mod for it, I'm just doing it with the normal whatever. So super gain, I measured it in centimeters. On my monitor, the super meter is 7 centimeters long. So 1.1 is slightly over 1/7 of a full super. Number 4, okay, this number is the type of Oki that you get. Most of them, so number 4 is normal Oki you can get a meterless throw off of. Number 2 is generally you have to drive rush and hit a button. You can't drive rush and throw. This bracket is drive gauge. So plus 0.8 is about how many drive gauge. So all these ones that don't spend any drive gauge, you recover drive gauge, assuming that you're not in any current drive gauge penalty. So over this combo, you would build about 0.8 of a full bar of drive gauge by the time you come out of it. It's actually more like 0.7. Anyways, the 0 in the bracket is how much drive gauge you take from the opponent. So for a level 1, I put that as 0.7. Now the reason for 0.7 instead of 0.5, because super level 1 takes half of a bar of drive gauge from the opponent. The reason I put it as 0.7, I added 0.2 to most of these things, is because it takes the half a bar of drive gauge plus the amount of time it takes for them to start regenerating the drive gauge is the equivalent that they would have regenerated 0.2 of a bar of drive gauge if they were hit by a normal combo that didn't involve that. So effectively, if you do something that doesn't take drive gauge from them versus a combo that does take drive gauge from them, you add 0.2 because that's how much they would have built otherwise if you didn't do that. Okay, now this equivalent is where I calculate my value. Now, I have a calculator here, but I'll pull up a calculator on this just for whatever. So, the way I currently measure this is, and this is for Cammy specifically, and I will explain my methodology soon. The way I currently measure this is a full super, 1 bar of super, is equal to 1500 damage. Okay, I measure everything in damage, and then I turn that into a value statistic. So, 1500 value. 1 bar of drive gauge is much looser. In a lot of these instances, I measure this at 400 for the player character, 300 for the opponent. Now, this is much looser and more abstract. In general, I would like, when I spend a bar of drive gauge, I would like to get at least 300 value for each drive gauge spent. I feel like that is a good bar to shoot for. And that's how I recorded the combos and whether or not they were worth going for. And, I measure damage as damage. I measure corner carry that doesn't get the corner as 50 per square of carry. So, and then for Oki, I have the Oki measurements here. This is how I measured Oki. So, no Oki, 0. Oki where you have to spend drive rush to get a meaty, 150. Oki where Cammy doesn't have a lot of number 3 Okis, which is where you can get like walk up and do a normal meterless meaty, but you can't do a throw. Number 4, normal Oki, throw range 500. Corner Oki, 1200 minus the corner carry because it's irrelevant once you are in the corner. Mathematically, that works out. So, I measure Cammy's regular mid-screen Oki as worth 500 damage, give or take. So that's worth 500 to get into that range. And I measure corner Oki as 1200 because of throw loop, the extra value of corner combos compared to non-corner combos, etc., and corner pressure and things like that. These measurements might be different depending on different characters, but this is how I measured it for Cammy, and I think it makes sense. Now, theoretically, these values could be adjusted if you really wanted to, the value of Oki, of corner Oki, of things like that, could be altered. I think 1,500 is a perfect way to measure the value of a super. Other things that are relevant. SS, I put for side switch. I also put a negative distance traveled. ST means combo that only works on standing opponents. CR means combo that only works on crouching opponents. And 5.9 means combos you can only do with micro walks when you're at full drive gauge. Eventually I started referring to them as 6.1s instead because that makes more sense. For punishes, I recorded here the distance from the opponent. Punish counters. So a punish counter of different types of move steals a different amount of drive gauge. So some of these are very specific for certain moves. Most of the time, a punish counter light takes 0.2 bars of drive gauge, and then a pause that's equivalent to 0.2 bars before their meter starts regenerating. Mediums generally take 0.4, however, Cammy's standing medium kick takes more. Heavy punches generally take 0.8, and then heavy kicks take a full bar of drive gauge. Always plus 0.2 for the extra drive gauge penalty. And then I recorded, so when you get the full animation for Cammy's level 2, it takes a full bar. When you get the air combo off of jump medium punch conversions, it takes a full bar. And when you're slightly lower than that, it's off of most of your juggle conversions, it takes 0.9. So let me demonstrate. So if you're up there, it takes a full bar. If you do these conversions, it takes 0.9. Now, the reason why... Let me talk about my supers. So, supers, now value is measured relative to damage. So, if you land a level 1, raw, it does 2,000 damage. Plus the corner carry, so if we were here, if I just landed this level 1 raw, no Oki, but 2,000 damage, and takes 0.7 drive gauge from the opponent, probably recovers you some drive gauge because it's not from a combo that you spent anything to go into. So it would be like, I don't know, 0.4 times 400 for your own personal drive gauge regen, plus 0.7 times 300 for how much drive gauge you steal from the opponent, plus 2,000 for the damage, plus how many squares of corner carry is about 2.6 plus 2.6 times 50 for the carry of squares. So the value calculated from this is 2,500 value for landing this raw level 1. So if supers can get so much value, 2,500 just for a level 1, why do I measure super at 1,500 instead of something higher? Well, because realistically speaking, you're going to be comboing into these with scaling that will reduce the actual damage that's being added. So, the value that you're realistically going to be getting in combos or otherwise guaranteed situations where you can land your level 1s, level 2s, level 3s, etc. is going to be much lower. The absolute peak, okay, people think that like, oh, level 3 is the most valuable. Let me demonstrate this. So this would regen you like 2 times 400 for your own personal drive gauge. It takes effectively 1.7 times 300 from the opponent. It does 4,000 damage, so that's that. And it gives you Drive Rush Oki, so plus 150 for number 2 type Oki. And it has corner carry of 0.3 squares, so 0.3 times 50 equals 5,475 value. Now if we divide that by 3, that means per bar of super we got 1,825 value per super. the most value you can possibly get per super is raw level 1. If you land raw level 1 3 times, it is worth more than landing a single level 3. Way more damage, way more everything, right? Now, realistically, that doesn't happen. You don't land 3 raw level 1s in a match. Level 1s are the most... 2,500 is the most value that you can get, not including when you're near enough that your combo also gets corner Oki, in which case it goes up by 1,200, so that would put it at 3,700 value. So that's the most value you can get for a super usage. Now, that's not including abstract things like if you need the super to close out a round. If you land a combo, but you can't do enough damage to kill the opponent without using a super of some kind, level 1, 2, or 3, then it's difficult to quantify that because you could save the super and still win the round without it. If it's a game-winning round for you, there's no reason to. You might as well just kill them. But if it's not a game-winning round and there are further rounds afterwards, what is the potential risk? What is the potential value of killing him now on this conversion versus saving it and then just landing like a throw or something afterwards? What is the risk? What is the value? And then there's things like burnout. People like saving level 3 because it does a lot of drive gauge damage right away, especially when you land it off of like a punish counter or something. So some hit, so you do like that. You take a lot of drive gauge very suddenly. This is drastically increased when you have CA. You do more damage, and you take more drive gauge. CA is probably more difficult to quantify because you need to have the right set of circumstances to be at below 25% health with a level 3 and the right opportunity to land the level 3 and the justification to get that much value from your level 3 usage. It's a set of circumstances that doesn't happen every match, so that's also difficult to quantify. Whether or not it's worth it to save level 3 on the off chance that you get to use it as a CA version instead of just the normal level 3. But if we land our raw CA, we can calculate that. I didn't measure CA in any of my documents. So we were to put this, so that would be like fucking, how much drive gauge do you regen from a CA? So 4,500 damage plus 2.2 times 300 for drive gauge stolen from the opponent plus 800 for roughly the amount of drive gauge that you recover and 0 corner carry. In fact, I don't know if this goes anywhere at all. I started this with my back foot on the middle of the stage. I'm curious how far it actually goes. Nowhere. Literally 0 distance. So that comes out to 5,968 weight plus 150 for the Oki. The potential of Drive Rush Oki equals 6,110 value. Divide by 3 comes out to 2,307 value per super. So still less than landing 3 raw level 1s separately in terms of relative value per super gauge, but enormous value theoretically. So realistically speaking, that doesn't happen, and people use supers and combos and such. So here's my reasoning for... Okay, this is where it gets complicated, because how do we think about level 1s versus level 2s and level 3s, right? Level 3s have this incredibly effective utility in that they can be done from special cancels, so you can do them off of like whatever. They do big damage, they cut through the scaling of long combos, they regen you a lot of drive gauge, so they're very useful at saving you from situations or from burning the opponent out. If you accidentally make a mistake and you spend too much drive gauge on something, you can immediately save yourself and regen a lot of your drive gauge. But there are costs to this as well. The other value of level 3 is that it's the most damage that you can possibly get in a single combo, which means that it's the most effective at if the opponent's at like 30% and you land like some random conversion, like some 2 jabs or something. If you don't kill them here, you leave them in yellow health. And if they have level 3, they get CA. If they don't have level 3 and they're not going to get level 3 by the end of this round, it doesn't matter, okay? Putting them in yellow health, no functional difference other than whether or not they have level 3 and it turns to CA, which makes it more threatening. But if they do have CA, it's imperative that you end the round. Which level 3 is very helpful for, to cut through the scaling of any conversion that you might get and to do the most damage possible in a single combo. So you can avoid them being at below 25% health at any point. So level 3 is useful for that. It's useful in a psychological sense. It's useful at like making it so that once the opponent's below like 40% of their health and they see that you have level 3, they know that one hit kills. But in terms of how much value you're actually getting out of it compared to how much value you could have gotten if you had spent level 1s and level 2s on previous conversions and previous instances, how is it actually comparable? How do we actually measure which one is theoretically more valuable? Now, in this game, okay, in Street Fighter V, you could save, like, all your meter. Usually people weren't just hanging on to supers the entire time, right? They spend meter on EX moves, and then supers were handy nearer to the end of a round and for chip kills and etc. But the thing about Street Fighter V is that supers are useful near the end of the round because they cut through the scaling of whatever you're doing to minimum scaling or maximum scaling of 50%, etc. But the thing about this game is that it's slightly more attuned to getting one big combo at the end of a round because of the way drive gauge works, and that you can splurge everything you have right at the end on the final combo, which means that your final combo is likely going to be one big damage thing that has a lot of scaling because of all the drive rush cancels and everything you're doing. So, if the game is designed in a way that you're going to be ending rounds with one big combo with a lot of scaling, then it makes level 3s the most useful because it's helpful for adding one big damage at the end of it and reducing the damage reduction of that heavy scaling. That being said, a lot of the times people spend level 3s, they don't actually need the full damage of the level 3 to kill. Okay, so, like, if you land, like, if you have, like, I don't know, fucking 4 bars of drive gauge, and you land, like, a low 4 drive rush, how much damage can you actually do with level 3 as opposed to on a crouching opponent, let's say? Level 3. You can get 4,566 damage versus 3,000 damage for level 1. Pretty significant difference once you actually take into account that heavy scaling and stuff near the end of a round. So that's why level 3s are more valuable in this game than they were in 5, because of the way drive gauge works, because you can use all of your drive gauge at the end of a round every time to close it out. It always adds extra scaling, and level 3 is the best for cutting through that scaling. However, I've only now recently thought about this more, because previously I was on the train of, yeah, level 3s are clearly better than level 1s or level 2s because of this factor, and because of these other things. But now, after doing more research and watching more matches, I'm starting to think slightly differently, because one of the things that I did throughout this process is, in watching high-level matches and tournament-level matches, I recorded things like how much value people actually get out of their supers. So this is from me measuring how much value people got out of their super matches and supers in matches and such. So let's say okay, Tokido versus Ken versus John Takeuchi. So Rashid, he used a level 2. He had at the right positioning, pretty near to the corner. He had a high life lead. He didn't need to win the round, but he could, and he won the round very quickly afterwards. So he got pretty good value relative to using a level 2, okay? But then you have like something like this. Rashid uses level 2 at the right positioning, but Tokido parries a lot of the stuff, doesn't get hit by anything, and escapes the corner from the situation. And John lost the round. So he spent a level 2, so he spent 2 bars of super on this round, and he lost it. So they went completely to waste. He didn't need to win the round. Non-vital rounds, so he could have saved the super for a round that he had to win, etc. Which means loss of two supers. He didn't win the round from it, and where it was used in the match, it gained him negative value, so that is a huge loss. 2 supers spent to get negative value, to put yourself in a worse situation than you were before you did the level 2. So, I went and measured how often do supers actually give that much value relative to that much. Because what I'm thinking of is, okay, if we just spend our supers in places where they get clear tactile value, right? If we just spend our supers, our level 1s and our level 2s and whatever, in places where they give us clear tactile value, they get the extra push we need to get the corner Oki, they do a bit more damage in a combo for which the scaling is not that bad and it will add a substantial amount of damage, etc. Like, if we just use our supers in ways where we can measure the exact value that we're getting, it's not as much value as these, like, all-or-nothing plays. It's not as much value as landing raw level 1s on Wake Up, or necessarily as, like, getting the kill with some level 3 or something, or maybe getting Burnout, but it's a consistent, measurable value that we can constantly get. So how much is that consistent, stable value compared to the ways people currently use supers, which is, as you can see, loss, 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 good value, great value, loss, huge loss, low value, some value, loss. The way people currently use supers at highest level, these are the highest level players, and the way they currently use supers is very inconsistent in how much value they get. Let me show you. I can very easily measure certain matches to the value that they get from their supers. Let me show you one of the LCQ matches. Here's one. The Grand Finals match, Problem X versus Punk. This first game that they played, the best example of this. Alright, so in this Grand Finals, Problem X is getting consistently fantastic value for every bar of super he spends. Now, it's much easier for Blanka to get high value for his supers because he has a really strong install level 2. I think his level 2, I went back and rethought about this with these statistics. I think Blanka's level 2 is the best level 2 in the game, and maybe the best super in the game. I do think it's better than Rashid's because when I was actually looking at these things and how these matches play out, Rashid's has some of the highest theoretical value, but Blanka's is so much more consistent in getting value, whereas Rashid's has to be done at certain positions to get the most value from it, and sometimes yielded negative value. Sometimes he didn't open the opponent up, it was just a net loss. So anyways, this is the first game that they played in Grand Finals, Punk versus Problem X.
It's up the offense a little bit now. Punk's got a chance.
What a pickup there from Punk.
Now, after this perfect parry is where Punk built his level 3. So he has his level 3 now, okay? At any previous conversion, any previous combo hit that he landed, he could have spent supers. So he didn't need to be at level 3 here. But the way Punk plays, it's very clear how he spends supers. He only spends supers if it will kill or get him in a fantastic position to kill. And otherwise, he saves all of his super for level 3s. Let's see how that strategy works out for him. Because the other thing that is an inherent weakness in level 3s is the potential super that you could have been building the entire time while waiting for your next opportunity to use your level 3. So now I'm going to measure exactly how much super he wasted by not using his supers and letting himself get full up on level 3 and then never spend his level 3.
Perfect parry, lock.
So, punish, counter, throw. I'm going to do literally every single action to demonstrate how much super he would have built. Punish, counter, back throw. Alright, next.
Last minute gets the back throw. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Here it comes.
Stand medium kick, EX, electricity on block.
Lightning Beast, how are you going to survive? You only have a little bit of...
Low forward on block. Drive reversal builds nothing, so that's... I don't need to... I need to look at that.
drive. He's going to surrender it because of the...
Stand fierce on hit.
reversal.
Standing medium kick, punish counter on block. Or punish counter. Not canceled in anything.
The air hit, but no!
Stand medium punch on block.
Oh, yeah, some damage left on the table because of that.
Jump heavy, punch, and jump short on block. Fuck.
Error.
That should be the game. Yeah.
Alright, I'll have to do this combo. Right. There, that's close enough. And I killed him, so we go into level the next round. He still has his level 3 stocked.
Bars here, and we saw what Punk did last time with that Super Art 3.
Crouch heavy punch on block.
What a throw tech from Punk right there after the drive rush. Didn't try to check it, didn't try to parry. How did he know?
Well, this is interesting because Problem is one of the players that will try to
Trade off of dive kick. So crouch heavy punch on block. Counter hit dive kick. Counter hit roundhouse.
play. Yeah, there's the trade conversion.
EX into up ball. I need to put these on a refill. Okay.
Problem is one of the players that will try to play footsies.
EXDP. Okay.
You have to do the no context drive rush all the time.
I remember Punk's ODDPs in that winter final set.
Punish counter sweep.
Well, sweep.
EX up ball.
With punish, but hey, right back at you.
Low forward jab on block. 2 jabs on hit. And then a roundhouse on block. Okay.
Adamant on doing those wake-up OT.
Heavy punch, light knuckle on block, roundhouse on block, low medium kick on block.
Perfect parry.
Very nice. It's another thing that we saw.
All right, this conversion, punish counter. Okay.
Max already represent after that stand heavy kick.
All right. Back medium kick, electricity, low medium kick on block. Okay.
Block, but I'll just parry your response.
Jump heavy punch on block. And then EX up ball. Fuck. So that is how much super he would have built. Alright? See my mouse? Here. 2 bars. Alright? This is like a pixel away from 2 bars. So 2 supers. 2 level 1s, level 2 he would have built if he had spent his super earlier and wasn't just holding on to the level 3 this entire time. And then he spends his level 3 on wake up and it gets blocked and he dies for it. So negative value from that. So effectively, he wasted 5 bars of super and got negative value from 5 bars. Compare that to just consistently getting solid, respectable value from level 1s and level 2s throughout a match, okay? What is the actual comparison between the potential value versus the potential enormous loss from holding on to a level 3 forever? And this happened several times. This was a big problem for Yamaguchi. He had full super, held on to it for a while, for a point that he would build a full super, didn't spend it on conversions, was waiting for a good opportunity to use his level 3, and then died, lost his games with full super. So he lost like 4, whatever. Big problem for some other characters. Hibiki, this was an enormous problem for him in top 16. Died with full super. He did the exact same thing Punk did. He held on to a level 3 for so long he could have built another 2 supers in the meantime, and then he died so he wasted 5 bars, right? So the actual value of gains from a super versus loss from a super, and this is not including the characters with very easy to gain value from supers, okay? Characters with bullshit level 2s, like Rashid, like Blanco, like JP, etc., they do not have a problem trying to measure this out. It's only characters with normal supers, like the rest of the cast, that have to consider this, where it seems rational that level 3 is the most valuable thing you can do, but that's not entirely true, and also there's a great potential of huge losses when doing so. So, the actual value of gains to losses is more evenly split than you might think. Now, I think when you just do them in combos and you get a tactile value from them, I think long term that might actually be more worthwhile than the current. And these are the highest level players who basically get 50-50 negative value or positive value from their super usage. So, keeping that in mind about why I value... Oh, right, I had one more thing to add on to this. I didn't record this or measure this, but this was another thing that I noticed during all these group stage Capcom Cup matches and some of the LCQ matches and stuff, is that I don't think that burnout is actually that valuable all the time. Alright, let's just take a look at this. So we're going to go forward until we find a burnout. An inflicted burnout by one of the players. He burns himself. Oh, that's not relevant. Okay. He burnt himself out by a mistake. He He did a jab whiff cancel drive rush. I don't think he wanted that at all. Terrible situation, but let's see how much Joe actually gets out of this burnout situation. Immediately gets the splat and gets the kill off of it. Oh wait, no he doesn't. Why didn't he? Could have gotten the kill off of it, should have. But anyways, so he got immediate quick value from the burnout. He didn't put Shotokan in burnout, but whatever. So that's one case of clear value from burnout. He burns himself out against JP. JP is probably a bad character to burn yourself out against. The characters are going to be different. Different characters have a different level of threat during burnout. If you burn yourself out against like Dulcim, it basically doesn't matter. He is not good at taking advantage of burnout. He's not a big threat. Against JP, huge threat. So let's see what happens as a result of this burnout. Makes a mistake. He didn't get the conversion because of the burnout, so
I thought he was gonna back door for the screen position. He actually had a side switch combo, but just miscalculated. How unfortunate.
a bit of chip damage and like an overhead. So he did like about this much damage, maybe, as a result of the actual burnout. So that's how much value he got from burnout. Now keep in mind, you need to keep in mind that burnout is not purely positive. It is not just positive value for you to burn the opponent out. Look, if you burn the opponent out, okay, a couple of things change. For instance, if the opponent is blocking in a normal circumstance, when the opponent blocks, you take something from them. You take drive gauge from them. When the opponent is in burnout, you're giving something to them. You're helping them regen faster. So, burnout has some advantages in certain circumstances. Now, burnout regens exactly as fast as normal drive gauge. They are the exact same. Which means that if you are helping him, if you are doing things normals and whatever on block, you are helping him get out of burnout faster. Okay? So, that's the difference. Why did I say... Okay, they're not exactly the same. Burnout recovers even faster than normal drive gauge. So, what's important to know about this and understand about this is that burnout is not just like a negative status point. That is drive gauge that they are recovering, because when their burnout ends, they are at max drive gauge. They completely recover. They have full drive gauge left. So, if you burn them out and you don't kill them from the burnout, you have given them back 6 bars of drive gauge. And you've helped them regen that drive gauge faster than they would have otherwise. Faster than if they weren't in burnout. Especially if you're making them block things constantly. Now, you can also regen faster by doing those long block strings and stuff, but, like... So, doing shit like this is a good way to regenerate your own drive gauge, so perhaps that's worthwhile, but the opponent still regenerates more drive gauge than you. Throughout this sequence, you just like push them to the corner, you do a bit of damage on chip, etc. You have some theoretical threat, but is it really worth spending a level 3 on some like some weak conversion or something? Is it really worth using 3 bars of super to get this status when the only value you're getting out of a burnout sequence is like more or less being even with the opponent on drive gauge recovery or a bit of chip damage? How much value do you actually have to get out of burnout for it to be worth spending a level 3 specifically for the burnout? And that's only theoretical. At high level play, players are much more skilled at defending themselves while in burnout. See, that's the weird thing, is that like burnout makes your block worse in that like the weird thing about burnout is that like You don't need drive gauge to play, generally speaking. The main problem of Burnout is that block stun gets worse by 4 frames, and you take chip damage, and you can't parry mix-ups and stuff, which is relevant only for certain characters. And you get wall splatted. But if you have supers to defend yourself, again, I already said that landing raw level 1s is the highest value you can get per super usage, which means that if you land a raw level 1 in response to someone trying to DI you, you're just giving them the most value they could have possibly gotten from a super. So, if they have supers to defend themselves, and they can still use supers while you're doing these like block strings and shit, they can use supers just like they would use any normal reversal on any potential mix-up or offense that you go for. So, how much value are you actually getting out of a Burnout, and is it worth spending the supers in the ways to get the Burnout versus spending them on anything else? Is it really worth it? Alright, so let's go on to the next match. We're going to see where Burnout is actually worth it. Okay, this is where Halibel burns Kawano out. He doesn't spend a super on it, but he spends like a drive rush to get the extra box stun. This, I think, is a great opportunity to burn him out because you're probably going to get the kill before he recovers his drive gauge. Okay, he's not gotten that much value out of it yet. See, this is what I mean, is that, like, it doesn't... Burnout is powerful. Putting the opponent in Burnout is powerful, and it adds this extra threat to things, but also, they don't lose all of their moveset. They only lose, like, certain specific actions, and for the most part, they can generally still play like a normal character. So he can anti-air DPs, his anti-airs is still invincible. He just jumps out of the corner, and he's only taken like a little bit of chip damage. And now he can just play neutral like normal, and he got nothing out of it. He got like that much out of it for the Burnout. Now he didn't spend a super on it, so it's not like he wasted his super on a Burnout that gave him nothing, but this is what I mean. Is Burnout actually giving you something tactile, some like incredible value that is worth using your level 3s just for the Burnout? I don't actually think so. At least in high level, where players are very good at defending themselves against DIs with supers by this point, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that was still a Burnout like Dragon Lash was 0.
And now he has all of his drive gauge back. I don't think that was a great use of drive gauge. This is one thing that offsets it, where I feel like once players get their drive gauge back after recovering from Burnout, they then immediately spend a bunch of it on suboptimal stuff. And get very little value for their drive gauge that they just recovered, but they don't have to do that. But so let's see how much value he's getting out of this Burnout. A bit, some chip damage, I don't know, he's still playing neutral. And he goes in, and yeah, there's any offense, level 1s are still invincible, they still reversal, you know, so it's not free, you're not guaranteed anything most of the time. Except for certain characters that are guaranteed chip damage sequences with projectiles, like JP. Let's look for the next Burnout. So both characters, both players, the opponents were put in Burnout or put themselves in Burnout, and both players got very little value out of their opponent being in Burnout. Alright, how did he burn out? He burned himself out. How much value is he getting out of this? He didn't get this hit because of the Burnout. That was just normal offense. Okay, messed up his meaty, or messed up his shimmy, or whatever he was going for there. Now it's just neutral, and you can't, it's not free. You can't drive rush because drive rush gets checked in the exact same way, whether they're in Burnout or not. They're gonna crouch jab, crouch strong, whatever. He did that. That's only 0 on block. Ken's Dragon Lash thing on Burnout. So Kawano takes his turn. He didn't get shit from that Burnout. Is it really worth spending a level 3? Now, keep in mind, not all characters are equal. Some characters much more threatening when you're in Burnout. Lily, really good when the opponent's in Burnout. Some other characters, JP, Rashid, etc., lethal when the opponent's in Burnout. Some characters spending their level 3 to get the Burnout is different because some characters get Oki off of their level 3s, whereas a lot of the cast don't get very good Oki off of level 3s. So, okay, this is an instance where... What did he land this off of? Perfect parry. So this is a perfect example of he's not using this for, like, very, like, damage or, like, utility or anything other than putting him low on drive gauge. Let's see how much value he actually gets out of this. Halibel has full super, and he didn't actually put him in Burnout. He put him near Burnout. Okay, so he gets this, and now he's put him in Burnout. This might actually be a situation, because of that DI, where he will get value out of this. But most of these reversal situations are the same, and he gets out of the corner because he plays neutral, because he can't just go on full-on offense, because he has supers he can threaten with, especially when he's down to this, and his level 3 turns into a CA, and you don't want to get hit by a raw fucking CA, so he gets out of the corner, and now we're just playing neutral, and you did like a little bit of chip damage or whatever, and he's out of Burnout. He spent his full level 3 putting him in that situation, and all that happened is he got out of the corner, he took a bit of chip damage, he did a DI that got counter-DI'd. You can debate on whether he would have done that if he wasn't low on drive gauge, etc., but that's what happened. And, again, it's not all positive. When they come out of Burnout, they have all their drive gauge back. You have given them drive gauge. And he won the round. Halibel won the round. I don't think, at least at high level, from the matches that I'm watching, I haven't measured them all in this way, but I don't think Burnout can actually be considered an amazing usage of a level 3 anymore. I don't. Not for every character, at least. Okay, he did this. This is probably a more valuable usage because he's using this to get his own drive gauge back at a healthy level, and he still gets, like, decent utility out of it. That's a usage I more agree with. Yeah, and he won. Accidentally burns himself out on a whiff parry. Okay, he gets extra pressure that he wouldn't have gotten without Burnout. Because of that, trades, couple landed blows, messed up a DP. That was not the fault of, like, Burnout being shitty. But, okay, so this is the value he got. He got about, like, that much value from the Burnout. Now, he didn't spend super to get it, so whatever, but... He is now in Burnout. He didn't get that hit because of Burnout. And in fact, he burned himself out on that conversion and then died because of the chip damage. I think Burnout, when you're in range to actually legitimately die from a chip kill, makes perfect sense. Burnout, when chip will kill you, is, you know, motherfucker. But, okay, burnt Halibel out. Got whatever, landed a couple hits. Debatable on whether or not he would have landed these hits. And then actually sneaks in the DI, and he wasn't ready at that moment to stop it. So, gets very significant value from that one. But think of how many burnouts have happened, and this is the first one where he got huge value from it. And it wasn't because he, like, spent a super to put him in burnout.
Perfect parry. But it was. He's under. He can. Just the reason. But, like, I don't
DJ, I think, is a character that is more threatening when you're in Burnout. He has stronger corner sequences and chip damage.
regular parry this. Oh, yeah. Caught him ducking. Bear's about to be throw. Strike throw.
And ways to skip neutral when you're in Burnout.
Reaction. Put Cammy to the level 3 and now Phenom very low in the chat.
Okay, this, he spends a level 3 to put him near Burnout.
Definitely a reason. Oh, they complete the combo. Oh, and he tried
Then
to-
Phenom burns himself. Okay, Phenom gets antsy probably because he was low on Burnout, low on drive gauge, and then puts himself in Burnout.
He's gonna come with a soul bot or something like that. He ends up burning himself out. Phenom, he got the TA. He didn't want to spin it. Not just yet. Sweep off the feet. You're caught burning himself out. Phenom.
He did not spend level 3 here. Pure mistake from Phenom, but he would have won.
Sweep off the feet. You're caught with burnout. Be able to spin the win up. Avoids the OD. Body chip him out. He goes for the super. It definitely. Oh, nothing. It is definitely nothing. First game. Turn. OD, the jackknife. Fireballs.
Phenom puts himself in Burnout.
Finds the DP. OD, the jackknife. Try to rush him with a medium. Counter hit. Strike throw. What are we going for? Go for a button. All this pressure is putting Phenom on notice. The area right there drops him right.
So some characters are more threatening when you're in Burnout, and some characters are better able to defend themselves while they are in Burnout. Like, one of the things that Burnout changes is that it drastically reduces the threat of just walking towards an opponent because you don't have to worry about low forward drive rush, okay? But Ken still has low forward Jinrai that he can defend himself with on a opponent walking forwards, and he still has good light sequences. He can do crouch jab, stand short, DP without needing any drive gauge.
The ground. Yo, but the jump heavy punch immediately decimates right there.
So what just happened? Right, he got anti-air and whatever, and he's out of Burnout, and it's like whatever.
Just as he gets over this section from that ready with time, but a little bit as well.
Burns himself out and kills. Not relevant to what we're talking about. Spends level 3 for the Burnout, so this is what we're talking about.
This is a great day, all right. Interruption against the drive rush.
Interrupted. Can't skip neutral. It doesn't help you in these situations necessarily. Or otherwise you need to spend a lot of meter for it to help you significantly. Alright, so there we go. He got the kill. Why did he get the kill?
This is huge right now. Again, remember the 2-0 is so important. And he gets the counter.
He tried to check. That would have happened whether or not he was in Burnout or not. Except maybe he would have tried to perfect parry the drive rush jab if he wasn't in Burnout. Debatable on what he would have done if he was not in Burnout. But let's say value from Burnout. Let's say he got that sequence and kill because of Burnout. So that's value from Burnout.
Just making sure tops are from that trying to hit the button, drive at last year. At that time from the corner,
burns him out.
Doesn't matter.
Gets punished.
Get nasty up in the corner. Stand fierce. OD fireball. He's gonna hold on to the bar. Oh, and that could come back to bite him. Just walks up against the stand fierce, and now
great defense.
3 bars for Shogun, though. How you gonna defend this? Oh, he just
burns him out with the level 3. Now, to be fair, he didn't just spend the level 3 to get the Burnout. He got it. It was a dual value. He escaped Burnout from himself so he wouldn't take any more chip damage or take the level 2 from JP. Fantastic usage. Puts him in Burnout.
Oh, he just walks up in his business. Woody Fireball backs up for a little bit.
EX Fireball deals with JP's level 1, Wake Up, and Amnesia. Although Amnesia's not relevant as much when he's in Burnout. And then he still loses, so he spent 3 bars in a losing round. Did not kill. The Burnout did not help him kill. Alright. Shodoken burns out Halabel. It's command throwed. Playing neutral, whatever, blocks a couple things. Not that much out of this. Alright, so he got some value from it. Not a ton. And not that much that wouldn't have necessarily happened if he wasn't in burnout.
There it is.
Spend a level 3 to get the burnout in the corner. You can still defend yourself with supers, so he does level 3 in response. And then wins. How often are we seeing players get the burnout on their opponents and then get reward from it? How often is it actually happening? I don't know. So, long-standing explanation of justifying my bullshit aside, let's talk about the actual... So I will make it so you can see these routes. Oh, this indication is how far away from the corner you can be. This is not measured. So these ones I measured to... This is measured based on, like, the midpoint of Cammy, because I think that it's... Oh, I was doing that other shit for so long my controller fell asleep. This is based on, like, Cammy's, like, middle, like, abdomen and body. So... This is... Okay, this can be done 1.5 distance from the corner. So... That means that... This is 1.5. So right here is 1.5. So 0 is there. Corner 1 is here, covered up by his leg. And then 0.5 is here. 2, 2.5, 3, etc. 4 is the middle of the stage. So this is 1.5, which means that this will get the corner Oki, so corner throw Oki from this exact distance and no further. So that's how those are measured. That's what this number means. This bracket means so this is the value of the combo. Plus 280 is the value for regenerating your drive gauge. So this is the value of the combo if you're full on drive gauge. This is the value if you are not full on drive gauge and regenerate the extra drive gauge when measured at 1 drive gauge worth 400 value. That's what that number is based on. This is the value of the combo if it gets the corner. So the ones in these line brackets are value if it gets the corner. For things that you would only do in the corner or things that only work in the corner, I just put the corner version of it. These are the routes. I will show you the entire screen. This is crouching medium kick. More crouching medium kick with supers. Crouching medium punch where relevant. This also extends to standing heavy punch or back medium punch, etc. because they are... Crouching medium kick, I had to measure differently because it applies more scaling than the other moves, etc. So these are the measurements of relative value for each extension. Back medium punch and anything into back heavy kick. I do not consider back heavy kick to be a good starter, so I don't start any of the things with back heavy kick. But if you get a jump in and then go into back heavy kick, these things are relevant. Drive impact in the corner. Drive rush, etc., whatever. Punish counteractions. This is distance from the opponent, etc. when you get the punish counter. Put on here so you can understand that. Going further. I didn't put all the values here, but you can imagine what they do.
Intercept preparations.
Down here to DI. This I do need to explain. So heavy knuckle, medium, and EX all apply scaling to the combo. So if you land heavy knuckle punish counter, your next attack scales to 80%. This is not the case for light knuckle. Light Knuckle does not, it scales like a normal attack, which means that the next action does not scale to 80%. It's 100%. So, landing, so until you get to 26 for DI, your strongest punish counter conversion in terms of value per thing is actually Light Knuckle punish counter. That's your most value. That does more damage and builds you and has like decent corner carry, strong corner carry, and builds you like as much drive gauge regen as that. So that does that for like 200 less damage, less super gain build than this, and almost the exact same corner carry. So Light Knuckle, just keep in mind 21 frames, so anything that's 21 frames minus 21, you can get that. That's your better punish. Only Light Knuckle. All the other knuckles apply heavier scaling, and thus are not ultimately as worthwhile. DI, enormous value. DI, punish counter DI, Cammy's best starter. You have to keep in mind that the reward of DI, when you start with it, one, you can get a pretty solid conversion off of that. Two, you regenerate drive gauge, so long as you don't spend any more drive gauge. And three, punish counter DI builds you an exorbitant amount of super gauge. So that, in terms of pure value from super, you built like over half a bar of super from that, solid damage, etc. Not as much damage as this, but still solid damage, carry, super gain, Oki, corner carry, etc. Everything. That is what I believe to be your most optimal value, relatively speaking, for all your resources spent and resources gained and stuff. Couple counter hit things that you can get, etc. Anti-air conversions that you can get. I only measure damage and things, blah blah blah. These are things that are technically more optimal in very specific circumstances, but I don't believe that it's humanly realistic to judge those circumstances. Therefore, I have put them aside here. So these are combos that technically are more optimal than something else for the exact distance that they obtain the corner from, but they are so close to the distance that you can obtain the corner from something else that's slightly less optimal or more optimal for less corner distance that I don't believe you can determine. If anything is less than 0.5 squares, I put it aside like this because I don't think that you can eyeball realistically less than half a square, less than 1/16 of the stage of distance in order to determine an optimization. So I have put those aside as they are only optimal in a very, very, very specific spacing that is very hard to determine with your eye. Alright, so let's continue to go over this. So 0.1s. I kind of got lazy at this point. This was the last thing I did, and it had been like fucking dozens and dozens of hours of work at this point. So 0.1. So these are 0.1s measured in value. I skipped all of like the 1.1s to whatever, but I put them down here, whatever. These are, so 0.1s. What I mean by 0.1 is that the value that you can burn yourself out. So if I start at 0, it's actually 0.1. So 0.1 drive gauge, what's the most that you can get when you can spend one thing of drive gauge and spending extra doesn't matter, right? So the most value that you can get burning yourself out at 0.1 is that off of that starter, etc. So that's what 0.1 means. So when you're at 5.1, these are like the routes and stuff that you can get for the maximum value, etc. I had to put these here because these conversions, I did not include routes that burn you out from full meter. So you get the idea. The point of these is that if you're like very close to burnout, because the difference that you could get, like, if you're at full meter and you land, like, a jump in... No, if you land, like, low forward drive rush and you're at full meter, doing, let's say... well, okay, let's say you land a jump in the back roundhouse. A jump in, punish counter on a standing opponent in the back roundhouse, and you're at full meter. The value of doing that may be debatable because it spends 4 bars. However, if you're at 1.1, the value goes up significantly because you're only spending 1.1 on this combo instead of 4. So the point of these 0.1s is to optimize by spending the most drive gauge with the last pixel of your drive gauge to burn yourself out to get the maximum value. So that's why these are slightly different than combos you would do normally if you're not burning yourself out. You understand. Okay, so that's like relative value that you can get from combos that burn yourself out. Now, whether or not you want to burn yourself out for something that only gives you value and not the kill is your own prerogative and probably matchup dependent. I think you can burn yourself out against some characters very, very consistently, like Dalsum or whatever. If you're in control of the situation and you burn out against him, I think it's no problem. And lots of very strong players have started adopting that mentality against Dalsum. These are your optimal damage routes at every level of resources and drive gauge to just get pure damage for the kill, etc. Alright, so let's go over some of these. I'm not going to go over everything. You can read the document yourself. I've provided it here in visual format, etc. But, like, let's demonstrate. So, that conversion, or off of 2 jabs, etc., generally speaking, is our default expectation. Then, if we're going to spend drive gauge, we do 2 jabs into this. Oh, right. Okay, so these are corner specific, right? So these are... I kind of started this at, like, distance from the corner, and then just gradually increased the distance, more or less, as I went down the list. So these are things that are, like, start in the corner, and then the further and further away we get, we go for something else. So if we're in the corner, we land this, that's our value. We can increase the value with a drive gauge expenditure by doing that off of 2 lights. So that comes out to this value. So the extra damage, like 700 extra damage, extra drive gauge, etc. So then I've recorded these things here. Value is 266 when you're not full on drive gauge, and doing the meterless conversion would regenerate your drive gauge. 326 when you're full on drive gauge. Or 328 when you're full on drive gauge. I do not consider this to be a good value. I think, so like I said, I think 300 value per drive gauge spent is the benchmark. Anything less than that, I don't consider very good. So, which means that this, if you're not on full drive gauge, if you land 2 lights in the corner, you can do that, and you build back like half a bar of drive gauge, etc., and you're doing good. And you can just go for something else, versus if you do that, I don't think the reward you get from that is worth that relative value. 700 extra damage, extra super. Now, especially when you're already maxed out on super and you won't build any super from your combos, that will change some of these conversions specifically. And I've already explained how I did the math for these, but let me just go through so that you can redo the math yourself for situations like if you're already full on super. So here, I do 1290 for the damage, plus... this doesn't have fucking brackets, does it? How do I do brackets with this? Whatever. Okay, so 2.2 times 50. So that's corner carry, assuming that you're not in the corner, not going to get the corner. Plus, now I measure super gain at 1,500 per super, which means that these measured in centimeters of 1/7 roughly equates to 1 equals 214. So plus 214 plus 1290 for the damage. Number 4 is worth 500. So plus 500 for the Oki is equal to 214, and then plus the 280 for this times 400 for value per drive gauge. If I wanted to calculate this, I would do 12,000 minus the 2.2 times 50, so remove that. So 1,200 minus 110 minus 500 for the normal Oki. So that comes out to this. So we do that plus 2114 is equal to 2704. That's the value if this combo gets the corner. So that's how we would calculate that, and that's how you can calculate things if you need to remove or adjust any of the values or the rates. If you are at full super and your super gain doesn't matter anymore, you can remove that part of the equation, etc. So that's how you can do that using this system. So then we come to further. Oh, when I put these down, I put diff as after a certain point I started putting diff at, I should have done this here, but I started putting diff at the distance that the conversion is considered the optimal. So diff is where you should use the combo. So 3.9, anywhere from 3.9 to 4.5 squares from the corner is where you should use this combo. So let me demonstrate. So if we are at 3.9 is like here. Right there is 3.9. So if we're here, closer than this, so what is this combo? This is crouching medium kick, drive rush, crouch heavy punch back, roundhouse, drive rush, back heavy kick, H spiral, M spike. So that's this. M spike. So there. So that's that. M spike. So, and that is here. Now, if we are closer to the corner than 3.9, why do we not go for this? What else can we go for? So 2.9 to 3.9, which is the previous one that I listed here, is drive rush, stand heavy punch, light spiral. So let me demonstrate. So if we are at this distance, we can do that combo, and we get the corner, and we get this much damage and this much super. I haven't been doing that, but whatever. Okay, I'll just read it off of my fucking document. So this is the value that we get from that. So we get, so from 2.9 to 3.9 range from the corner, we get 4,567 value. So we get this much damage, this much super gain, etc. Versus if we do the next conversion, which is the 3.9 to 4.9, why don't we do the previous one? Well, once we are outside of 3.9, we don't get Oki. We don't get throw Oki, so we can't start our throw loop from this. So, once we are right outside of 3.9, our previous conversion no longer gets true throw Oki, true corner Oki, which means that we can't calculate its value as this anymore. It calculates to this. And this is less than this, which is if the next conversion, which has further corner carry, gets Oki. So this is less damage, less super gain, etc. But if it gets the corner, it's more worthwhile than if the previous one doesn't. Diff means, I put diff means if this conversion gets the corner and the previous more optimal conversion does not get the corner. So only when the extra corner carry is needed to get the corner, this conversion is most optimal. So at the range 3.9 to 4.5, this is most optimal. Etc. And that works all the way to 4.5. which is a small range. It's only like 0.6 range, but it's probably actually more like 4.6, but whatever. So that is how to read this document, that is how these are measured, and that is how, etc. So each of these conversions are based on this. Again, ST is standing. Anything that's not, anything that doesn't have anything there works on crouchers or standers. Now, there's only one other thing that I need to explain, and everything else you can read off of this document. Okay, one thing. First, I should explain this. On the standing opponents, anytime you get this conversion, you have to micro-walk. There's two ways to do this. So, you get this, you walk forwards, and then do back roundhouse. Now, I have a couple of conversions on here that are very high execution. Specifically, let me see one of these standing routes. Alright, this one. This one is very high execution. Crouching medium kick, drive rush back roundhouse, drive rush back roundhouse, micro walk back roundhouse. So let me demonstrate. There. So you have to get a tiny micro walk after the second drive rush back roundhouse to get into range. Then you have to go from forward at a specific timing to back roundhouse, and then you can get the conversion there. So that technically more optimal at the range for which that is the more optimal conversion. I recorded all of the things of how much value you're actually getting relative to the drive gauge that you're spending. This one, probably not optimal in this circumstance, but significantly more optimal in this circumstance, etc. I mean, that one's like debatable, and it's high execution anyways. These combos, these like micro walk combos like this, where you have to micro walk and then do back roundhouse, much easier if you're playing on hitbox. If you're doing it just one back roundhouse, the execution is like whatever. I fuck it up because I'm a useless idiot, but this one is not that bad. Now, technically, there's 3 versions of this. That is the most optimal one, where you hit them pretty high up with the second back roundhouse, and that one you can get heavy DP afterwards. If you want to be safer and easier execution, you walk further forwards, you let them drop further like that, and you get medium DP. Less damage, less whatever, but it's much easier. If you want to go into level 1, you need them to be pretty high up, like there. Other important factors, when you're doing the back medium punch, or anything that goes into jump cancel, jump medium punch, you do it at the apex of the jump. The highest point possible that you can do the jump medium punch, that's where it's most effective. And in fact, I actually have forgotten to measure one specific thing here, and these are off of like this, so that's whatever. I think I put them at like back medium kick. Yeah. So EX dive kick into level 1 has like exceptionally good corner carry for just in 2 bars. 2 bars of drive gauge. That being said, I don't personally think it's necessarily worth doing off of like a drive rush conversion. Especially since you can, but that is a conversion that you can do while the opponent's crouching, whereas most of the other routes that have that level of corner carry, either require level 2 or whatever. So let's go back to here, crouch medium kick. So how much corner carry did that do? That did... Yeah, I only measured this after I finished all these ones. So this does 6 or 5.9 corner carry for 5 bars versus what? These are all the crouching medium kick routes. Without that, 6. I'm not seeing a 6 here. Okay, for level 1, we come to what? This is not... Oh, right, these are side switch route. These are very good if you're, like, close enough to the corner that... So, 7.7 to 7 to 8 or 7.3 to 8, which means you are right ass in the corner, basically. These are very good side switch routes for level 1. So let's see. It seems like the lowest conversion prior to that, from a reasonable amount of meter, that was worth doing was like this. So let me really quickly, I will do the math on this. So, low forward, this. So that's, so I will do the calculation. So that's 2697 plus 2.8 for the amount of centimeters of super gain. 2.8 times 214 plus, well, I guess that's like the only relevant point. Plus 0.7 times 300 for the drive gauge damage to the opponent comes to 3506 plus 1200 for the corner, and this can be done at like 6.8. So this could be done 6.8. So we're going to compare that to the previous thing on a crouching opponent with a level 1, which I guess would be this. It comes out to 4302, whereas this is 3949. Right. And this is not a crouch route, but this spends how many bars of drive gauge? 5 bars of drive gauge. Wait, is this 5 bars of drive gauge? No, I think that's 4 bars. So, yeah, 4.5. I measured it. I don't need to think about that. Whereas this one is 3 drive gauge. So 3 to 4.5. So this comes out to that over a 4-bar route of similar carry, assuming 1 drive gauge is equal to 400. So, okay, yeah. So I already thought about this, and I recorded that, so I have the information here. So the thing that I just did with the EX dive kick is 4,706 assuming corner carry. So it did about 2,700 damage. It built that much, whatever, which is more damage than you would get from these routes. But it is a 5.5 conversion, so we're going to do minus 400 times fucking 2.5 is equal to this, so 3,706. So, if this gets the corner at a range from like 5.3 to 6.8, is this worth doing? So then I would have to measure it against the non-corner Oki, which would just be like normal fucking whatever. So this or this, or like the default ways to do that. So then I would do 4,906 minus 5.5 times 400 is equal to 2,706. Compared to these values, 2,706. So compared to this, so minus 2,130 comes out to 576 value, assuming that you're full on meter and that this is not a factor. Which means that that comes out to 576 value per super, which is a bit low. More so low if the extra drive gauge you would have regenerated from the meterless route is a factor, at which point it comes down to 256 value per super, so I do not consider that to be worth doing. For supers, I'm more like willing to play it loose. I think that like aiming for 700 and 800 value per super is good. I could lower it down to this, etc. And I should explain my other methodology for spending supers. Okay, so there are 4 types of rounds. There is first round, Vital Round or Vit Round, where where the opponent won the first round, which means you are not on game point, but you have to win this round or you will lose. Point Round, which is where you won the first round, and if you win this game, you will win the match, but you don't need to win this round. And Final Round. And those factors will affect your decision making for supers. First round, this is my methodology. Save super unless it will kill or otherwise yield a very safe lead with a huge value proposition. Burn out with at least one extra factor, such as opponent not having invuln supers to defend themselves, low health, corner, etc. Or put them below 1/2 or around 1/2 drive gauge with 2 extra factors. Never when a single mistake will get you killed. Use super if it will provide you extra value you wouldn't get without the super, plus a safety net with a huge lead, plus putting the opponent on low health, a la extra corner carry for a 4-bar side switch combo, or a reversal with low drive, etc. So that's my methodology for how to spend supers in round 1. The Vital Round. You need to win the round. There's no value in saving supers if you don't win the round, so use supers early in the round to get an advantage. There's no point in holding... If you didn't spend meter on the first round, which you shouldn't have if you lost the first round, ideally. If you didn't spend super on the first round, you are more likely statistically to build up to a level 3 on the second round, okay? So you're likely, if you don't spend any super, you'll get to a level 3, and then you will be wasting super because you'll be sitting on level 3, etc. And it's not necessarily worth it. So I think in a Vital Round, you need to win, which means you need to get an advantage. Spend a super early on that gives you a significant advantage, okay? Use that advantage, and then, so that can give you an advantage in a round that you need to win early on, and it also avoids sitting on a level 3 as the round progresses. And then later on, make a judgment call if you need to use another super, use it if you need it, etc. You need to win this round. Prioritize level 1 and 2 over level 3 since you still have to win the last round. Willing to use supers to augment drive gauge, such as back medium punch target combo level 2 routes, etc. Point Round. Not too different from first round. You don't need to win it, but more emphasis on saving super for a guaranteed kill with level 3. Willing to spend level 1 early on for some significant advantage if no super was spent in round 1 to avoid a surplus. And to possibly force the opponent to spend super if they are going to take the round to make a comeback, especially if the opponent wasted a super in the first round. Otherwise, avoid spending super without putting yourself in a borderline checkmate advantage. Surplus is acceptable only on a losing round. Final round. Use supers liberally for clear value that you will obtain. You don't want a surplus on a win or on a loss. You don't want to die with extra supers you could have used. You don't want to win with extra supers you could have used. Get clear, immediate value. Saving level 3 can grant a clean kill near the end, but it increases the likelihood of surplus, doesn't get an early advantage in the round, and increases the likelihood of a net loss. Use supers frequently for strong value. If you have a level 3, don't spend it right away in the round. Use a level 1 or a level 2 to gain advantage if you start with the round with level 3. Early level 3 is bullshit. It yields very few of the advantages level 3 is supposed to yield, and it puts you at no super. Use any amount of super to win the round, obviously. That's not related to the final round, that's just in general. So, that is my methodology for which rounds and how to spend and how to think about using your supers. Now I have one more thing to talk about, which is Hooligan. So, okay, if you are going to spend value to put your opponent in burnout, there's a couple things I should demonstrate that Cammy is quite good in when the opponent's in burnout. Burnout, I think, is good when you have high-low mix-ups. And Cammy Hooligan, if you do heavy Hooligan into immediate dive kick, it's +2 on burnout. Hooligan in raw neutral is generally not great as compared to doing just dive kick, but there is an advantage in using Hooligan, which is that if you space out like if your dive kick is too close, it won't be plus even if you're in burnout, whereas this, Hooligan, it's low enough that no matter how close you are, you're in throw range at +2. But the main value of Hooligan is that you can cancel it from normals. So you can use this to go over things. So, for example, you can use this to go over certain level 1s. You can use, if you need to go over normals, the higher Hooligans are more likely to avoid reversal actions from the opponent. And you have a variety of things that you can do with it. So, Hooligan, useful in Burnout. Raw Spiral Arrow, very good in Burnout. Dive Kick, Knuckles, very good in Burnout. I think that you can steal a lot of turns because she has this like infinite block string, etc. in Burnout. So you can steal turns with Heavy Knuckle, which if they block Heavy Knuckle, you're +7, and you can forward walk for a true throw. Overhead is no longer negative on block, it's +2, so even if they block the mix-up, you're still plus, etc. So the value of Burnout comes from the extra plus frames, the ease of doing things in neutral that are safe or plus, etc., and having something that they can't easily defend against, so mix, and reducing their ability to convert off of things very easily. So, generally speaking, if you do things that might get you floated, like getting hit out of Dive Kick or Hooligan, if the opponent's in Burnout, they're going to have a harder time converting off of it. Depends on the character, but generally speaking, they won't convert off of their float states as easily or as damagingly if they are in Burnout. So that's relevant. Now, other than that, I want to demonstrate. So there's a couple ways that people go into Hooligan or use Hooligan currently. So they'll do something like that. So generally speaking, a common one is this, into Drive Rush Light Kick, into this, and then that's like, they set it up for the throw or overhead. Like so. I do not like this. If you're going to do Hooligan mix-up, I prefer doing it with a low slide to the overhead more than I prefer doing the throw. I think if you just do EX Hooligan in neutral, or off of some like block string or something, that is worthwhile for catching people suddenly standing and getting a solid conversion off of it. But other than that, for Hooligan set play, I don't like doing this type of stuff with the throw. Not a fan of that. I think that the main value of Hooligan set play comes when you're low on drive gauge. Let me demonstrate. Look how much drive gauge you build when your low slide gets blocked. You build, and that is even if you put yourself in drive gauge penalty. So even if you did some conversion like this, where you're putting drive gauge penalty for a while, etc., you still build back a decent chunk of drive gauge, and you can continue to pressure the opponent afterwards. Now, I think this is more valuable. I do not like doing this off of spending an extra drive gauge to go into the Hooligan. I'm not a fan of doing that. I think the good ways to go into Hooligan are from, if you catch the opponent standing, I think that's a good route. That gets a very meaty Hooligan slide, so you're +9 on block, which means that if the opponent wakes up and blocks the slide, you're so plus that you can true block string them into Stand Fierce, which takes more drive gauge from them and builds you back a very high level of drive gauge. So you build back almost an entire bar of drive gauge. In addition to the fact that you get a mix, you still get corner carry and pressure, you still can go for the throw, etc. You can go for a meteor overhead that is distanced out, so you can be 0 at this range outside of throw range instead of -2 within throw range. So, mix where you're not punished for guessing wrong. You can drop early. There's a couple ways to drop early. You can drop at like a -5 or something and still be in low forward range. Or you can drop there and be +2 if you want to walk up and get a throw. Now, you're not technically in true throw range at this point, but etc. So, I would do it off of that, and I would do it off of this. So, there's like 3 ways to do these routes. You can do it here, where you do the uncharged version, which has a greater capacity to be plus and meaty on slide and overhead. You can do it off of these situations where you can go for the throw. I don't like doing that, especially when you have to spend a bar to go into that. Or you can do it off of these side switch routes with a full charge. So you can do side switch routes like that. Now the value of the side switch is you can't go for the overhead low mix-up, but you can go for a left-right, which is not unseeable. They can see the left-right and react to it if they're focusing on it, but you would be surprised how difficult it is to actually see it if you're not already practiced with seeing it and prepared for the situation. And the other value of this is that you can easily land on either side of the opponent and get a meaty throw at plus frames. So you can punish parries. So that's the value of that, is that you can do the thing, but the main value, the main point, I think, of this, other than theoretical mix that you can get, is that a lot of the things that you can do will regenerate your drive gauge. The slide, the double slide, or the uncharged single slide meaty will regenerate a lot of your drive gauge. So, I think that these are 100% worth doing in a variety of circumstances. I don't think they're as good in the corner because of the threat of perfect parry back throw in the corner, but I think they have a lot of functional utility in mid-screen. But again, off of these specific conversions, I don't think it's worth spending an extra drive gauge to put yourself in a heavier drive gauge regen penalty to go into these. And if you get the meaty slides, I should also make sure to let you know this. If you get these meaty slides, you can convert with drill, which you normally can't. So you can meterlessly convert with drill into Oki. And in fact, you can convert into a Drive Rush 4-framer. Is it worth doing it all the time? Probably not. Unless it gets a corner, etc. But it's pretty good. Also, this loops into itself if you really want to. Keep regenerating drive gauge. So anyways, those are my opinions, those are my routes, and these are my combos and routes and such. If you have any questions on any of my notations or anything I forgot to mention here, or anything at all, yeah, go ahead and shout it out. I spent a lot of work on this shit. Alright, that's about it. See ya.